Men who routinely get 5 hours or less of sleep per night have significantly smaller testicles than men who sleep 6 hours or more routinely per night. That was how Matthew Walker, a sleep researcher, opened his TED Talk on sleep. Matthew Walker also wrote a really excellent book about sleep that I recommend checking out. In some of his sleep research, he found that men who routinely get 6 hours or less of sleep per night have testosterone levels equal to someone who is 10 years older than they are. I really like the way that he opened that TED Talk because it was so poignant about some of the physical effects that can occur from a lack of sleep and sleep deprivation. My wife and I right now, we have 2 young children, right? We have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I am currently in the stage of my life where I'm getting probably some of the worst sleep I've ever gotten. Just last night, my 1-year-old woke up, 3 times. He was upset, wasn't sleeping very comfortably. And then my 3-year-old woke up twice. He woke up once and he said, I can't sleep. I want you to come sit in a chair in the living room until I fall asleep. And I did that for 5-10 minutes. And then I thought he was asleep and I snuck off back to bed. And then 20 minutes later, he woke me back up. It's like, oh my gosh, it's brutal. So I'm feeling a little fuzzy when I'm recording this video today. I notice a couple of different things within me when I'm sleep deprived, right? So I find that, I have a bit of mental fog. I have a little bit of a shorter fuse. Decisions are kind of harder to make. Workouts feel much more difficult. Sometimes I'll walk into a room and sort of forget why I was walking into that room, or I'll have a conversation with someone and I'll do that thing where I go, oop, I just forgot what I was going to say. And then there's one aspect of sleep deprivation in particular that I experience, which is I start to feel depressed if I have consistent sleep deprivation. So if I go, 4 or 5 or 6 days getting 5 or 6 or less hours of sleep per night, I find that I start to feel depressed. I start to feel this feeling of dread, this feeling like something's going to go wrong, this feeling that I'm in danger. And so to me, that really illustrates the power of sleep. And then when I get a good night of sleep, that feeling thankfully goes away. So the lesson that I want to convey today is that sleep is not optional. It's the foundation that everything else in your life sits upon. You can't out-exercise it. You can't eat well enough to negate bad sleep. When you mess up your sleep, you really affect every other input in your life for the worse, and that's substantial. So thank you for tuning into this video. If this is the Ryan Weiss Show, if this is your first time joining the channel, my name's Ryan Weiss. I'm doing a video series right now called Lessons for My Kids, where I'm recording 1 video per week on a lesson that I think it's vital that my kids learn by the time they become adults. And this episode is on sleep. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of the negative effects that sleep deprivation has on you, and I have some data around that. But first, I think it's helpful to talk about the goal, right? So what does great sleep look like? I have some specific data on that. So the American Academy of Sleep Medicine recommends adults of all ages get 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. And quality of sleep matters as much as quantity. I've always heard this, quality of sleep matters, but I've never really understood how quality of sleep is measured. So the American Academy of Sleep Medicine has sort of 4 measurements that they use to determine sleep quality. The first is the amount of time it takes for onset of sleep. So when you go to bed, how long does it take you to fall asleep? Ideally, it's 30 minutes or less. 10 to 30 minutes is sort of the sweet spot. If it's longer than that, that can indicate some sleep challenges or sleep unhealth. If it's shorter than that, that can actually sort of indicate sleep deprivation. So if you fall asleep in 1 minute, that can indicate that that you're sleep deprived. The second measurement that they use is sleep continuity. Do you sleep through the night And if you wake up during the night, can you fall back asleep within 20 minutes? The third is sleep efficiency. So of the amount of time you're laying in bed, what percentage of that is spent asleep? At least 85% of the time you spend in bed, you should be asleep. 90% is excellent. Below 85% means that you're having disrupted sleep, and below 75% can signal insomnia. And then the fourth is kind of a subjective measurement, which is how you feel when you wake up. Do you feel rested? Do you feel alert? Or do you feel kind of groggy and crappy and feeling like you need 3 cups of coffee before you're ready to function? Now, as far as how you specifically can measure your sleep, I recommend getting a wearable fitness device. There's a bunch of different types. You can get a Whoop, an Oura Ring, an Apple Watch. In my case, I use a Fitbit. I like the Fitbit because it also tracks my cardio exercise. And then every morning I have a sleep report where it'll tell me how long I slept, how good my sleep was. It can actually measure some more in-depth things like heart rate variability as well. That gives you sleep health. So I highly recommend getting a wearable to track your sleep. Now, what counts as not enough? So the CDC has a clear line. It's less than 7 hours per night, right? So if you sleep less than 7 hours per night, you are at risk for weakened immune function, obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. 5 to 6 hours regularly is the danger zone, right? So this is where the long-term health risks really start stacking up. Under 5 hours that's like catastrophic. You're in serious danger of harming your health. A Harvard medical study followed 2,800 people aged 65 and older. Those sleeping under 5 hours per night were twice as likely to develop dementia as those sleeping 6 to 8 hours per night. Twice as likely. I think for me, one of the things that motivates me to get more sleep is to understand what the body is actually doing when you sleep. So there's really 4 key stages of sleep, and your body will cycle through them 4 to 6 times per night while you sleep. The first stage is light sleep, right? So this is where you drift off into sleep. This is your first 5 to 10 minutes of sleep. And then light sleep afterwards makes up about 45% of your actual sleep. During light sleep, your brain has bursts of activity that researchers think are actually your brain organizing your memories and information throughout the day. Now, light sleep is different than REM sleep, but light sleep makes up about 45% of your actual sleep. Then you have the third stage, which is deep sleep. Deep sleep is like the physical repair shop. This makes up about 25% of your total sleep time. During deep sleep, your body releases growth hormones, repairs tissue and muscles, builds bones, and strengthens your immune system. It's also when your body regulates glucose and other hormones. If you undersleep, this is typically the sleep that your body cuts first. So deep sleep is sort of the first to get cut when you experience sleep deprivation. Then you have REM sleep. REM sleep is sort of like the mental repair shop, right? So REM, R-E-M, stands for random eye movement. When you're in REM sleep, your eyes actually move rapidly. If you ever watch someone sleep, sometimes you can tell they're in REM sleep because their eyes will sort of jerk back and forth. Your brain is highly active and your muscles go limp so that you don't randomly flail while going through REM sleep. This is also where you dream. And REM is where your brain consolidates memory, processes emotion, and detoxifies itself. This is also where most of your dreams happen. The emotional regulation piece is key. So REM is where you process sort of the emotional weight of the day. And I think one of the reasons that I probably feel depressed when I have my sleep cut is because I'm cutting into my REM sleep. So my brain sort of can't process the emotional load from the day before. And if that persists over a few days, that's where it can really get, that's where it can really get, costly. That emotional buildup is not clearing out in REM sleep. Now in the US, we have some serious sleep problems, right? 30% of the US adults sleep less than 7 hours on average. So 3 out of 10 people are sleep deprived. And I think we have really sort of a cultural problem in America of discounting sleep and discounting the value of sleep, right? Oftentimes, I see people brag about the amount of the few amount of hours they can sleep and still function, and the things that they do instead of sleeping, right? So, oh, I didn't sleep last night. Instead, I worked 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., got a bunch of stuff done, and then, got 4 hours to sleep and I feel fine the next day. That seems like a brag. And I think in our culture that kind of is a brag. But my hope is that the tide changes, and that is actually looked upon as like something that should be frowned upon, maybe even kind of ashamed of, or at least recognize that that is not sustainable, and that's not good for your overall life and your overall health. So I have 4 recommendations for how to improve your sleep and how to make sure you're getting enough sleep. The first is treat sleep as a skill and as a practice that you can improve over time. So I recommend setting a bedtime and a wake time and making those the same even on the weekends. Try having a cool, dark room, no screens in the last hour, and have the last hour be boring on purpose. This moves into practice number 2, which is protecting the wind down hour before you go to bed. So like I said, no screens. I recommend having some kind of evening routine. I'll tell you what I do. When I have my wind down routine, I start by reviewing the goals that I set for the day and the goals that I have for the week. And I see what progress I made that day towards those daily goals and towards those weekly goals. So I sort of check out. I plan my next day. So I say, okay, here are my goals for tomorrow. And so that sort of orients me towards tomorrow and gets me starting to think about what I'm going to work on tomorrow. Then I do 10 minutes of productive reading. So typically I have a nonfiction book that I'm working through that has something that I want to learn, and I'll read that. Then I do 10 to 20, maybe even a little bit more minutes of fiction reading. I really love reading fiction, and particularly sci-fi. And I find that sort of lets me forget about the day, forget about the things that I'm thinking, sort of get lost in a story that I'm interested in, which helps me to relax. I'll also do some deep breathing as I'm reading, sort of focus on breathing in slowly, breathing out slowly. And all that sort of helps me so that when I get in bed, I'm ready to close my eyes and drift off to sleep. Sometimes I'll have something during my day that sort of sticks out to me and is bothering me, something that's emotionally charged for me. If I find that that's coming up for me, what I'll often do is I'll pull out my journal and I'll write about it. And I'll write, hey, this is what happened, this is how I'm feeling about it, this is why I think I'm feeling this way, this is like the action that I think is still undone, that maybe needs to be done. And I find that sort of writing it and getting it out helps my mind to stop ruminating on it. I recommend getting a sleep tracker. I talked a little bit about this earlier. That's number 3. And then the 4th thing is to prioritize sleep, right? So when your life gets busy, I recommend cutting other activities before you cut your sleep. So if you have to make a trade between sleep and TV, or sleep and social media, or sleep and something else, some other activity, I recommend prioritizing sleep. Make it a priority to go to bed. Go to bed, get some sleep. It's going to improve so many other parts of your life and of your experience. So in closing, there will be seasons of your life where you don't sleep well. I'm currently in one of those seasons. I'm trying to get through it. It's tough. It's challenging. Newborn babies, hard stretches at work. There's a bunch of different reasons why your sleep can suffer. Those seasons will come to an end. And if you ever start to feel like a feeling of dread, a feeling of anxiety, a feeling like things aren't going well in life, I recommend checking out sleep. That's a good starting place. Are you getting high quality sleep? Are you scrolling on your phone before going to sleep, going to bed late, waking up early? Those things can really contribute to a negative emotional state and negative life outcomes in ways that people wouldn't typically expect. So on that note, I feel like I need a nap. I hope that you are sleeping well. Sleep is massively important part of physical health. Don't neglect it, and prioritize your sleep. So thank you very much for watching. This has been Ryan Weiss, Lessons for My Kids. Sleep well. Bye-bye.